Hey guys, today we're in the book of First Chronicles chapter 11. Saul is dead because of his unfaithfulness, and now David is made the king. And we can see in verse 1 where it says, all Israel gathered together to David at Hebron and said, behold, we are your bones and of your flesh. Now remember, the Lord told David he was going to be king way before he actually was. And it wasn't until Ishbosheth, one of the followings of Saul, was murdered, that then all of Israel rallied behind David. And so now David is king. And the reason that they chose him is because the Lord said to him, you shall be the shepherd of my people and you shall be the prince over my people. It's because that's what God told Samuel and Samuel told Israel. And so everybody got behind and anointed David the king. And now as David is the king, he takes all of Israel. He goes to Jerusalem, also known as Jabes, the place of the Jebusites, which were another group of Canaanites. And so they were not followers of Yahweh. And so Jerusalem, being on the top of a mountain, is a very fortified city. And that's why they told David, you will not come in here. There's no way you're going to break into our city. Well, the Lord is more powerful than anyone, and so David does. And David took the stronghold of Zion and made it his city, right? Known as the city of David. It became the capital of all of the kingdom of David. David's kingdom starts out small, but as it grows and grows and grows, as he defeats many of the Philistines and many of the other groups, Canaanites, the kingdom grows, but Jerusalem will always remain the city. Let's see. Notice verse 9, very important verse. And David became greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. Saul was not, because why? Because he was unfaithful. David was, because he was faithful, right? So we're learning what was bad about kings, what was good about kings, because they described the king to come, the ultimate king. And then the rest of the chapter is about David's mighty men. And we've read a lot about these, so we don't have to take a lot of time. But we know that these mighty men, right, these valiant men of David, and a couple things I just want to point out. David as a king without the mighty men would have been nothing. Okay. The mighty men made David the king that he was. That's because David was a follower of God, because he poured into them, he discipled them, he shared vision with them, he helped them, he trained them. And so David, a good leader, is not just a leader. A leader is a good leader is someone who pours in to the people that is around them. And that's exactly what he did. And that's how he became so popular and so good of a king, is because of these mighty men. And we get a couple that are mentioned, right? You have Yahushbim, you have Eleazar, you have all of these men. But in verse 15, we see that three of these men go back to the cave of Adullam, right? Remember, this is the place that he first hid. But then they go back later on in David's kingship. 1 Samuel chapter 22 talks about the cave of Adullam. And they camped there. And David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. Bethlehem is a far distance from Jerusalem. And what it's showing us is that the Philistines that taken over during Saul's time, how far they've taken over. They didn't just invade a little bit. Their kind of stretch into the promised land was huge, all the way up until Bethlehem. So all the way up kind of in the northern region. And so here he's just saying this was the garrison. This was a post, right, of the Philistines, and they were there. And while he was there in the cave of Adullam, he was having a craving, a longing. He wanted things to be right. And he says that he longed for it. And he said, oh, that someone would give me water to drink in the well of Bethlehem. This was his home, right? And so he was like, man, just to have the refreshing taste of water from home, I would do anything. Well, some of his mighty men heard this, and they go all the way basically through war territory, break into basically a post of the Philistines, and they just get water. David didn't tell him to. This was just a longing that he had, but his mighty men were so bought into him and treated him so well like a king. They wanted to do anything that they possibly can for King David. And they bring back this water to David. And notice what he does. It says, but David would not drink it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, far be it for me before God that I should do this. David was so honored in the action of some of his mighty men who would risk life and death just to get a glass of water for David. He didn't even feel adequate to drink the water. This was something that they gave their life for David. And David said, no, this is so special to me. I don't want to drink it. I'm going to give it to the Lord. Once again, a visual of who a good king is. King David took the best and most meaningful things that he had around them and sacrificed it to the Lord. The new David that is to come will sacrifice that which means the most to him. Well, it'll be his life on the cross, but he will be a sacrificial king, right? So once again, you just see the points, right? There's stories, and these stories we've already read, but this chronicler is just pointing out things that the king will not be and that he will be. We see some other mighty men. In verse 20, we see Abasha, we see Benaiah, and then starting in verse 26, we get a list of these mighty men, right? We kind of get like the honor row. We get kind of who all these mighty men were. And you can read through those, and some of those you'll know. A lot of them are described in Samuel and in Kings in Samuel, about 2 Samuel, over the wars and things. But notice verse 41, Uriah the Hittite. Well, that's Bathsheba's husband, right? And so just notice he's listed there. And then some men after him that are important. And so once again, we just see that this new king to come, if he's going to be a king like David, will have men around him who will sacrifice, who will honor him. But the king, David, will be a sacrificial king. He will take that which is most honored and give it to the Lord. And that's pretty descriptive of exactly who Jesus was. I hope that makes a little bit more sense, and we'll see you tomorrow in chapter 12. God bless.